Hi, I'm Eric Henry. Excited to be here again with Mike White today. We've covered a couple great topics as you've lent sort of all of your history and knowledge of the digital signage industry to inform us of our future, to talking about how signage is really hard to sell, but how you can be successful in it. And I'd love to really glean from you not just how to make an AV integrator successful, but how do we actually help the customers be successful? And so that's the topic for today that I'd love to dive into with you.
A successful digital signage deployment project starts with a clean and crisp and clear scope of work. And so if you were to ask me, how do I help my customers succeed? I would start out by saying, as the integrator needs to be able to define what the scope of that project is going to be. Now, within that definition is the key to success, and that is talking to the customer up front of what digital signage long-term success looks like. It is not one and done. It is establishing what message that you believe is going to be effective to deliver the return on messaging, to the investment, the attention. The point is they need to identify that. And if they can't identify it and be able to put a metric on it, they shouldn't even do the project.
You said some interesting things, and maybe you could expand on this, return on objective.
Yeah.
Like, what's that all about?
Well, the classic business lingo that a businessman, and I are one of those, that had the opportunity to own and operate a AV integration. And the very first one that is most commonly talked about is return on investment. And that's generally just more or less dollars and cents. You know, I invest $50, can I make $100 by that investment? But you see, there's so much more to digital signage. In a organization, let's say we're a large organization, a hospital, and we've got HR, and HR has a certain time of year that they need to apply the benefits. You need to have a sign-up period and things of that nature. Now, that doesn't have a return on investment, but to that HR director, being able to put signage up there, maybe a QR code, that when a person sees that sign, they use their phone and it becomes sticky, because what leaves with them is now on their phone, and that's an element as a result. But they can encourage their employees to sign up on time, the benefits, where to get their questions answered. Those are not return on investments, those are return on objectives. So these are corporate type of or business goals in which are not necessarily tied to directly dollars and cents. And then there's the most current one, which is the return on attention. One of our biggest challenges is everybody is bombarded by so much messaging out there. I mean, they turn around and there's a sign there, or they open their phone, there's a sign there. They sit down, there's a sign there. So the return on attention is a big deal. Regretfully, the return on attention in many of the past years, and you all tell me how many times you've seen this, but is that you walk by a storefront, you walk by a transportation center, and you look up at the sign, and what do they see? Nothing. They see a black screen or a blue screen of death. And it is a proven fact that people only look 2 or 3 times at the most. One of the worst things that a digital signage application can do is to put information on the screen that is not relative, pertinent, and timely. Because if they put up their, company celebrates 20th anniversary with picnic at the park, and that was 3 weeks ago. The people are going to look at that sign, recognize nobody's watching it, and saying, why should I spend my time? So when you talk about success, it's blended with lots of elements. Sure. It's blended with not only the hardware and the right CMS, but content messaging. It's a big picture, and it's not like selling boxes.
So if you enter into a customer, you're the salesperson at an AV integrator, and you walk in and you start having a conversation, and it becomes very clear to you that they have no idea why in the world they're even going to do this signage project, what do you do?
That comes from maturity of knowing what questions to ask and knowing your digital signage application and how other people have benefited from seeing it. Lots of times it is the responsibility of the salesperson and the engineer that follows with this to be able to ask the questions, and the customers have aha moments like, well, I didn't know that we could integrate it with, let's take a manufacturing environment, for instance. One of the big challenges, like you go into, let's pick one that I've done, a boat manufacturing environment. They need to communicate with their employees that seldom see executives. They're out there on the line, fiberglass, it's all challenged. But there's more to it that they could put up there, and I brought to their attention how they could put the just-in-time metrics of where the parts and pieces and production line numbers and all of that are appearing in front of the people, so that the people know how they're doing against the goals. And then there's, you know, the things like employee recognition. So there's the point is, if I come to a customer and after a few minutes they're kind of don't know that we should do digital signage. Well, one of the answers may be you shouldn't do digital signage. The second one is, to have the knowledge as a salesperson to know what additional questions to ask to see if there's additional. One of the easiest ones, the one of the slam it, the ideas is, I always says, can you bring your HR person in here? And because the HR person is generally not sitting at the table with you. Can you bring your HR person in here just a second, or could we make an appointment to meet with your HR person? Boy, there's a gold mine. All you got to do is talk to them about the challenges of communicating with their employees, and there's all of these return on objectives that start appearing as a value add for that decision.
What are the other things that you need to cover with that customer to make sure that you've really thought through? You talked at the top about establishing a clear scope of work. Right. And so what are the other details that you need to know to be able to put that together?
Eric, there's the knowledgeable integrator will take the time to learn the digital signage ecosystem. And the ecosystem includes so much more than just the idea of a screen and a CMS. It includes the element, like we discussed before, of connectivity. It includes cyber hygiene. It includes a recognition of what the maintenance is going to be. It includes service relative to what goes wrong, the logistics of deployment from the standpoint of digital signage. As with most AV projects, always take longer than what you expect. Digital signage is especially true of that, because so many times I'll tell my customer, okay, we've identified areas of responsibility. One of them is that this type of content needs to be ready for this digital signage display, or this video wall, or this LED wall, or this holographic, any of those things. We need to have this content ready. And they say, they're shaking their heads, yes, yes, yes. And then you get out there and you get it up there, you turn on your system. All right, we're ready to download the content. Well, we're not quite done with that. Well, I eliminate that right off the bat. I always tell the customers, unless I have your content that I can play in my shop on my screens before I go there, I don't think it's a wise idea. I'm not brutal on them, but I'm very, very straightforward and honest about them. Backup of information is also critical. Most of the time, a lot of people's, especially in the old world of premise-based solutions, they failed to acknowledge that. The beauty of today's cloud is you don't have to worry about updates. In the old world, you had to worry about updates. The premise-based, it was somewhat challenging for IT and everybody, but today, thanks to the cloud being the basis of success for digital signage, everything's always current. Everything's backed up in the cloud numerous times. So I'll just say, for the spirit of brevity, there is a digital signage ecosystem which includes all of the elements. The way to help the customer prepare for and to let their system play long term is to recognize. I'll finish with this one. Digital signage is one of the toughest duty cycles on hardware that exist. If they're not playing 24/7, they're at least playing 18 hours a day. And a lot of people will be tempted into just getting the cheapest quote unquote flat panel or whatever. Now, I can't necessarily be harsh on them, because the cheapest flat panels are still pretty darn good today, and they last for a while. But it's sort of analogous to having employees and not taking care of them and realize how tough it is to replace them
Right.
when you have them. And the same thing is true. You've got a production line in a manufacturing facility. You've got a 70 or a 85-inch flat panel mounted 30 feet above the ground, and that you had to use a lift. You had to make territory for it to get out, and that thing goes out because there was stuff in the air that killed it. The point is, one needs to understand where their digital signage players or their digital signage displays are going to be used, and what the duty cycle is going to be a part of that, and be able to proactively think, okay, realistically, 3, 4, 5 years from now, I need to be thinking about what's next, or at least proactively having this checked out. So.
Yeah, you're really speaking to the total cost of ownership, right?
Right.
And so I know that we've been really, as we've tried to really come alongside our AV integration partners, we understand the cost of rolling a truck.
Oh.
Right, is brutal, and especially in the early days of digital signage, you had to roll a truck to fix a signage system. And so now we're looking at, okay, you mentioned updates, like how do we update firmware and keep all the software current? That's part of the total cost of ownership. Speaking to displays, if I have to ship a display somewhere, I've lost more than I saved by selecting a display that may be discounted. And there might be situations where that is appropriate. But I think that's a really great point. So really thinking about, for the customer, what is it, helping them understand the total cost of ownership.
Yeah, when you talk to them about the duty cycle, because see, oftentimes they're used to having the discussion about a conference room that you use 3, 4, 5 hours a day, and then you hit the button and you walk out, or you've got an automated system that turns it off. But in the digital signage world, that sign that was out in the hallway, it was on before they got there, and it is on after they leave. And if the integrator has not taken care to either buy a screen that has a timer on it, or the CMS has a means of controlling that screen on a schedule, that screen is 24/7.
Right.
And by the way, many of the retail-based end user hardware things write in their own warranty statement, and they'll say your warranty is voided if you're using this 24/7. Right. And don't think that just because they didn't see it, they don't know it. There's chipsets in those pieces of electronics that obviously the integrator and the people we're talking about now, but your end users, if they don't have that transparent conversation, they've got to gotcha.